Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our April 6, 2021 Planning Commission meeting. Before we get started, I'm going to lead you on the Pledge of Allegiance, and Mr. Cover's going to lead us in invocation. If you'll stand with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Father, we thank you for the opportunity to come before you tonight. We ask for your wisdom and guidance as we make decisions on behalf of the citizens of Springdale and for our local community. Father, we ask that you put your hand on the government of the United States, as well as the mayor and his staff and the governor and his staff, Lord, for Arkansas. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Again, welcome to our April 6, 2021 Planning Commission meeting. I'll call this meeting to order. If we can do roll call.
Howard Austin.
Here.
Gary Compton. Roy Covert.
Here.
James David.
Here.
Shannon Mueller.
Here.
Peyton Parker.
Here.
Kevin Parsley.
Here.
Ben Peters. Dale Tyler.
Here.
All right. Any questions or comments for the minutes for March? If not, I'd have a motion to adopt the minutes.
Motion to adopt.
I have a motion by Mr. Covert. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Mueller. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. There are a couple items that we will not be hearing that are this evening that are tabled items, and I'll just briefly go over those. The conditional use, C21-10, Jim and Betty Cash Trust at 5392 Arkansas 112 Highway, that is tabled. 21-11, GPS Transportation, 324 North 48th Street. We have a variance, B21-25, Next Global Holdings LLC, 4876 North Thompson Street, along with that waiver. And finally, we have B21-28 and B21-29, Gibson Butcher Construction, 603 Black Oak Avenue. Those are tabled. And then we had a recent one as well that's tabled, B21-30, Jim Moore, 4052 Jessica Lane. Those all are tabled and will not be heard this evening. Going back to the tabled items from last month, we have quite a few that we need to go through. The first one on the agenda is R21-10, Chad Reed, 560 West County Line Road, from MF12 to C2, presented by Chad Reed. We have Chad online. Okay. I'll move on to the next item, R21-13, CCO Investment LLC, 2259 East Highway 264, from A1 to SF1, presented by Blue and Associates.
Hello, I'm Amanda with Blue and Associates, representing my client, CCO Investments.
Okay.
In the beginning, we were trying to do a property line adjustment because he owns the property next to him to the west. And so that south line that you have hatched, we were moving that line forward. And then when we submitted it to the city of Springdale, it caused us to have to do a rezone because it wasn't conforming to what he was actually zoned in. So we were requesting to go from A1 to, excuse me, SF1 to making a compliance with what the acreage amount is going to be when we do actually adjust the property line.
Thank you. Staff comments?
Okay, first of all, we don't do property line adjustments. You'll have to do an informal plat to do that. The rezoning request, the comprehensive land use plan indicates low density residential use for the area. The rezoning request is in keeping with the following goals and policies of the comprehensive land use plan is recommended for approval. Protect the positive aspects of neighborhood character throughout the city, assure adequate land allocation for residential purposes by providing lots of adequate size, and encourage the development of a variety of housing types.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Any questions or comments from the audience? To the commission? This be a call for the vote.
Call for the vote.
Call for vote by Mr. Covert.
Austin,
Yes.
Covert, David,
Yes.
Mueller,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Parsley,
Yes.
Tyler.
Yes.
This passes 7-0.
Staff will prepare the ordinance. It will go to council on the 27th.
All right, thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Yep.
We have a replat 21-05, Mark and Celia Black, 4409 Bogey Drive, presented by Bates and Associates.
Yeah, my name is Max Richards. I'm here to represent.
Your Bates and Associates?
That's right.
You want to explain to us what you're trying to do with this?
Sure. Part of this parcel was conveyed just as a lot in a subdivision. And there's also an extra strip that he owns outside of the subdivision that was conveyed using meets and bounds language. So all they're really trying to do is just get one legal description that contains all of it with cohesive language.
Okay, so are you saying part of this is being added to was not part of the subdivision itself when it was platted?
I'm sorry?
What you're adding to this was not part of the subdivision when it was platted? You were adding land to the subdivision itself?
That's correct. Not necessarily to the original subdivision. I believe this has been replatted back in the day. And now we're just adding an extra 6-foot strip to that.
Okay. It was replatted to add that extra 6 foot, or you're adding another 6 foot?
Originally, they replatted lots 9 and 10 of Grandview subdivision that this is located in. And they just kind of moved the line around. And now we're just adding that 6 foot that I mentioned a second ago to lot 10A that was created by that replat.
Okay, so it was replatted, 9 and 10 were replatted, and that strip was added to it. You're not adding something to the subdivision that wasn't part of the subdivision to start with?
Right now, we want to add the 6-foot strip to the original. The 6-foot strip was not in the subdivision, so you are right, yes. We want to add something outside of the subdivision to it.
Okay, that's a lot more complicated of a process than just adjusting a lot line, because the subdivision had a boundary to go with it, and if you are adding property to that lot, everyone in that subdivision has to be agreeable to add that additional 6 feet. That's not simply a replat of a lot if you are adding just 6 feet.
Okay.
So does, which order does that have to be done in?
Well, it can't simply be a replat of Lot 10A of Grandview subdivision if they're adding property to Grandview subdivision. I would suggest we table this again, and I would suggest you schedule a meeting in my office so we can go through the particulars of this and see really what's happening, okay?
Okay. So if it's being added just to one lot, the one lot we're talking about,
If it's
that's not a replat?
If it's being added to a lot in a subdivision that was not part of the subdivision to start with, it is a different process because you are changing the boundaries of the original subdivision, which takes all the property owners in the subdivision to agree to that area to be added.
Okay.
That's a different process that we have to go through. So we need to sit down and go through that, and it would take, how many lots are there in Grandview subdivision, do you know?
That I don't have with me. I don't believe.
Okay, I would suggest you do some homework and look at the original Grandview subdivision plat and whatever replats you can find, and bring those to my office, and let's sit down and talk about how this needs to go, okay?
Sure.
Okay.
So with this being tabled a second time, there's gonna.
They'll have to do notifications again, but if we're doing something totally different, it's a different scenario to go through.
Notifications that need to happen anyway.
Yep.
Whole subdivision. So we're
Different
tabling this
process.
one.
Yes.
All right, thank you, Max.
Thank you.
Next, replat R21-06, Vic Enterprises, Lot 7, Block 4, Howard Acres subdivision, presented by Blue and Associates.
This is Wes here with, hello, this is Wes here with Blue and Associates. So this is a lot split of Lot 7, Block 4, Howard Acres subdivision, being submitted as a replat. Last time it was on the agenda, it was tabled on account of trying to figure out what the property owner was planning on doing with regards to his sanitary sewer and or septic system, which at the time he was considering putting in a septic system, but it's turned out he's in too close proximity to an existing sewer line, so he has now opted to tie into the existing sewer line.
Staff comments?
Okay, and the buildings that are shown on this proposed replat are being removed so that we
Yes.
don't have a lot line going through those and we won't have any setback issues, correct?
That is correct. Those are being removed.
Okay, and you have something in writing indicating from Springdale Water Utilities that sewer can be provided to these two lots?
He's been in contact with extending sewer services with water utilities, or with Springdale Water Utilities over there. I don't know if he has something in writing from them at the moment, but I'm sure he could get one for you.
Okay.
Ma'am, Wes, this is Victor. We have an email that they sent it to us, and I went to the office of Miss Patsy Christie. And we request something in writing, but you know, we have several emails back and forth. She didn't know exactly what they want from us, other than the email saying yes, that we can do that, and how much we're going to be paying for it. It says 2 manholes, 4,500 each, plus the 200 feet of main line, blah blah blah, and all that stuff. It's going to be a total of 23,950 for me to get the sewer line there. And I told him, okay, yeah, we will do that.
Okay, and that's fine, that you have worked out how it's going to happen. The actual replat cannot be processed and finalized until those sewer improvements are either in place or the water department has allowed you to bond for them. So we can move this forward, it can go to council and be approved, but it will not be signed to be filed until that's taken care of with Springdale Water, okay?
So, all I gotta do is talk to the water. I already spoke to them, but I don't have nothing in writing.
I understand.
They told me that they can do another meter right next to it, and actually West moved the line, I guess, 1 feet or so that we needed in order for us to get a water line there. But I can go there and get something in writing from them, and that will be all you needed, ma'am.
Well, what I'm telling you is we can recommend this to be approved with the changes of the line and the ability to get sewer on both of them, but it can't actually be filed and allow it to be split until either the sewer service is in place on both lots or Springdale Water has allowed you to bond for it. So it's my recommendation that we go ahead and process this, but it can't be finalized until you get that commitment from Springdale Water, how that's going to be worked out. Okay, you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Any other comments?
Okay. So I have one last question. So I mean, I'll go to the Springdale Water Department. I need to get something from them, pay them, or what? I don't know what do I need to ask him exactly, so I can go back to your office and say, well, this is what I got.
Okay, you call me tomorrow and we'll figure it out. It really is, you've got to have either them allowing you to bond for the improvements, or you have to have the sewer lines extended. Okay?
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Bond for them. Thank you very much. Have a good day. Thank you, Wes. Thank you.
Any questions or
This would
comments?
be a motion and a second, subject to staff comments. Okay.
Any questions or comments from the audience? To the commission.
Motion to approve, subject to staff comments.
I have a motion by Mr. Covert. I have a second.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Mueller.
Covert,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Mueller,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Parsley,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Austin.
Yes.
Replat passes 7-0. Next item, B 21-17, Victor Ortiz, 1129 Jefferson Street, variance for deviation of paving requirement with 2-year bill of assurance presented by Victor Ortiz.
Hi.
Hi there.
Hi. Mask.
You can take your mask down so we can hear you a little bit
Okay.
better. Okay.
Thank you.
See, I think we had pictures on this one.
What he
as well.
submitted is a picture that shows this is the outline of the area that he would pave in 2 years,
Yes.
if you grant him that bill of assurance that it would be paved. I think last time our aerial photography was behind, we didn't see the building that was built there. You didn't build the building, correct?
The one in the corner, we built it, but there was an actual permit that we had for that. It
Okay.
wasn't built.
Okay. And you actually use it for a business?
No, I just used the property for park my trailers. Well, yeah, you said it was
Okay.
part of the business. Yes.
You use
Yes.
to park the trailers for
Which are
your
part of my
business.
business,
Which is
exactly.
part of your business,
Mhm,
okay?
Yes.
Okay, so that's what he's asking for, a
Mm-hmm.
2-year bill of assurance to pave that area that's outlined on there, and you should have a drawing in your packet or on the table of what he is proposing, and that's what he's asking for, a 2-year bill of assurance.
What are all the measurements on the second page?
The second page that I emailed had the outline of it's a little bigger than that, just extending, and it has the measurements on it.
Yeah, and if you take those dimensions,
Okay.
Austin, that's how you get this drawing that's shown on the screen using the
Yeah,
dimensions?
this is a representation of what we received.
Right.
Okay.
Of what that email says in the distances, that's how we
Yes.
got that drawing.
Okay.
Because his is a little general when you look at the picture that he provided, but using those dimensions, that's what we would be using for the bill of assurance.
Just want to make sure you guys sufficiently had what you needed.
We're really close, yes.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the audience? It's to the commission. This be a call for the vote.
I have one quick question, if you don't mind. Mr. Ortiz, is there a reason we're asking for 2 years instead of just 1 year?
Well, at first I thought it was supposed to be concrete, but then so that I could actually use asphalt on it, which I just want to be sure that I have enough time. I think I can do it in a year, but I just want to be sure that I have enough time because of how work is. I don't know if I'll have enough funds in a year to cover that whole expense.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Can I say something regarding that? Usually, Roy, when someone comes in and they're, it's this kind of an issue, I will tell them that they need to ask for I always say 2-year bill of assurance, because
Okay.
in the past, that's pretty much what we
Okay,
go
great.
with. So that's the reason,
Perfect, thank you very much.
Okay. Any other questions from the commission or comments? This be a call for the vote.
Call for the vote.
For the vote by Mr. Covert.
David,
Yes.
Mueller,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Parsley, Tyler,
Yes.
Austin,
Yes.
Covert.
Yes.
Passes 7-0.
You need to come by the office and get the documentation to put together for a bill of assurance, and then we will file it at the county, and it will be a lien on your property for 2 years.
Okay, sounds good.
You'll
Thank you.
need to call first, because I have to do the legal
Yeah,
description.
you need to
Okay.
call first,
I'll
yes.
call first. All right,
Okay.
thank you.
Kevin, before we move, we have Dad Reed with us now before we move on from the table items.
Oh, okay.
Also, I'm being told that we're having some difficulty hearing in the lobby, so we may need to turn the volume up a little bit so we can have the applicants be able to hear their items.
Okay.
Did you guys hear that? Turn the volume up? Okay.
We're back on 21-10, right? Chad Reed, 560 West County Line, roads, MF12 to C2.
You want to tell us what you're trying to accomplish?
Sure. Aim here is to use it for a self-storage complex. I own one less than a mile away, and we're looking at this lot to develop some new ones.
Okay, staff comments?
The challenge with this piece of property is that it was not properly split into this lot. So I will tell you my recommendation, and then this would be subject to taking it to council, having that informal plat put together, creating this lot as it should have been from the beginning, okay? And Mr. Reed knows that, so we've already talked about that. The adopted comprehensive land use plan indicates commercial use for this area. The zoning request is recommended for approval, meets the following goals and policies, improves the city's economic base and tax structure through the approach of healthy, stable commercial concentrations, assure adequate land allocation for commercial areas of sufficient size and in proper locations. Again, it would not move forward to be completed by council until the lot split has been formally approved that creates this legal description, okay? Because the property's already been transferred. You've already taken title to it.
Correct. Yep.
Now, and you can ask the question, how do we get rezoned to MF 12 in the middle of it? Well, you can rezone a portion in the middle of it without changing hands. Once you actually sell it to somebody else, it has to be split correctly. So that's the issue with that one.
Any questions or comments from the audience? It's to the commission. This be a call for the vote.
Call for the vote.
Call for vote by Mrs. Mueller.
Mueller,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Parsley,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Austin,
Yes.
Covert,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Rezoning passes 7-0.
Thank y'all.
Thank you. All right. Next section, rezonings, R21-14, Gerald B. Jones, 611 East Apple Blossom Avenue from C1 to I1, presented by Jorgensen's and Associates.
Jared Edmond with Jorgensen and Associates. This first one's just kind of a minor housekeeping item. We actually had this project, Phase 2 of OTL, approved at the end of last year. And one of the conditions of approval was to get this portion of C2 that was on this property rezoned to I1. And that is what we are requesting today. If you got any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Staff comments?
Okay, this is a piece of property that was brought into the city of Springdale with the consolidation of Bethel Heights. And as you will remember, we transitioned the zoning that they had previously approved, and it was transitioned from their industrial zone to our I-1 zone and the C2 zone that was part of that. So that's how it was transitioned to this. At the present time, our land use plan does not cover this area because it was not part of the city of Springdale the last time the land use plan was updated. The rezoning request is in keeping with the following goals and policies of the comprehensive land use plan is recommended for approval. Encourages the development of industries that further diversify and stabilize the city's economic base that are compatible to the labor force, raw materials, and industrial climate, and provide space for new and expanding industries with low environmental impact, consolidate industrial areas near traffic arteries and collectors, rail and air facilities, and major utility trunk lines.
Is that it?
We do have some letters that have been submitted from adjacent property owners and most of those were put on the table. Most of those are in your packet. If you want those read into the record, I can do that, or if you want to stipulate what you have received, they would be put in the record. And I don't know, there's probably property owners who want to address this too. We'll get to that in a minute, okay?
Any questions or comments from the audience?
Yeah, absolutely.
If you'll come up to the mic and state your name and address, please.
Sure. I live on 610 Topaz Street in Lowell, just down the street there on the map.
And your name?
My name is Matthew White.
Thank you, Matthew.
Basically, I'm opposed to this. I went around and taken a petition to various homeowners around the area. We've got 130 signatures online to say that people are against this, and 100 physical signatures to say that they're against this, so 230 signatures in total of people who are all against this that live around the area. That's just a small portion of the people who live around there. I work a full-time job, so I can't get around to everybody. But this is absolutely something that's extremely opposed to in the area. I think there may have been 3 homes that said they were in favor of it or would not sign due to COVID reasons when I went to their door. So it should have never been zoned industrial in the first place. But from what I was told, I didn't have time to do research on it. The first time the Lowell Property Association did a petition against it, they were threatened with a $2 million lawsuit, and then this was pushed through. When the company bought, they knew that this was commercial and it wasn't industrial 2 grade, and so there's a chance when you buy into something like that, you know that it's not going to be approved to be an industrial place. The road Apple Blossom itself is not rated for trucks. It's a 2-lane road. There's no truck signs on it. And we're looking at putting in an industrial warehouse where trucks will be coming in and out all the time. If you look at Oak Street, there's multiple $300,000 and $400,000 homes that are built on Oak Street, and you're looking at putting a facility right behind them and devaluing those homes tremendously. So we're really looking at really hurting a lot of homeowners here. There's also 92 new homes being built just across, if you zoom out, just across the street there from this. And those are people who do not know that this warehouse is planned to go in here. They signed on and they bought and they paid and put money down on these houses, and they don't know that this warehouse is about to be built right in front of them and devalue their homes. So that's absolutely not fair. There's also 30 other houses going across the street down the road from Oak. Not only does it affect Springdale, it affects Lowell homeowners. It affects both of us, and I feel like Lowell homeowners got a say in this. There were no mailbox flyers or anything put out, so I'm not even all aware of what's going on here. Just to kind of pass on what I heard from some of the people I physically spoke with, they think this is the first test for you guys as a city council taking over Bethel Heights. They want to see what you guys are going to do. It's a bit of a call to action. With 230 signatures opposed to this, I would hope you guys would not approve this rezoning. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
My name's Kyle Barlow. I live at 5706 Garnett, which is on Oak Street, one of those larger homes he was referring to. I would also point out that right as you go towards Springdale on Oak Street, there's a huge apartment complex with kids always riding down bikes and walking up and down Oak Street. I don't know how, from a safety perspective, we can have, a logistics place where they're now going to be carrying, 18-wheelers on Oak Street. How there's a huge safety concern, as also he indicated, just the value of the homes there. You're going to see a lot of homeowners probably put up for sale and I know I would, and move out of Springdale very quickly if this is approved, just because the impact it would have both on my family, safety-wise. I have kids there, and also from a financial perspective.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
My name's Dave Shelley. I'm at 5711 Garnett, and I oppose this as well. I moved into this house a little under 2 years ago. Quiet neighborhood, and all of a sudden we now have trucks going up and down Oak, which is never designed for all that truck traffic. It's listed as no through trucks already, but there are trucks going back and forth already on that road. That area was nice and quiet. We bought that house. Nice neighborhood. There's a lot of value in our house that we bought. You put this in there, we're gonna have a lot more traffic, a lot more hazards that we're all gonna have to worry about.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the audience? Is there anyone online? Any comments from online? No? Okay. All right, it's to the commission.
So the area to there's already I-1 area right there adjacent, correct?
Across the railroad track is I-1 that was, again, came into Springdale, that's the way it was already zoned. The area on the north side of that, on the west side of the railroad, is in Lowell, and it's zoned industrial. You go south of that, you have the areas down there that have been industrial for quite some time. There's a concrete plant and steps in there. I think some of those places were in existence when some of this other development took place. I can't answer that because that was in Bethel Heights, and I can't answer all that.
And then there's the C2 strip on Oak Street.
Right, right. And that's to remain there as a buffer. We're really talking just a small piece of that to go to I-1. The rest of it remains a C2, which serves as that buffer between the industrial and the residential to the east.
I heard a couple of comments about the access as far as trucks on North Oak. Did I hear that correctly? Or the truck traffic being more of an issue on Apple Blossom, or both?
Both. Yeah.
Okay, I don't think the business that's there now doesn't have access to Oak for their truck traffic to go in. All their truck traffic goes in and out of Apple Blossom, which is listed on our master street plan as a major collector. It hasn't been built to that standard, and I think it was on Bethel Heights as the same thing. I don't know that for a fact, but I think it was.
That's right,
Yeah.
yeah. Can I say something? I just want to be clear, on this rezoning request, we're just talking about the portion that is on the north, just that L-shaped piece. So the property that is phase 2 of that on-time logistics facility, the majority of that property, probably 80 to 90% of that property is I-1 right now. And we're just asking for that sliver, that C2 on the property, to go to I-1 with this rezoning request.
But also I-2.
That's the next rezoning.
That's not this zoning request.
Yeah.
We are looking at this request only, which is that small 2.6 acre
That's right.
tract that has frontage on Apple Blossom. That's all we're talking about right now.
That's right.
I just need to see the whole thing as a picture of what the grand scheme of things are when we take this into account.
Okay, we are talking about this rezoning request only at this point.
Any other questions or comments from the commission?
Chairman, I'm sorry, I want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly. So the 2-acre property that you're looking at, this is, you're just wanting it to square off that I-1 piece that's already there?
Yes, so there, currently on that piece of property, there's that sliver of C2 that is on the east side.
Okay.
And the majority of that property, which is a 2.4 acre tract, is I-1 right now. I'm just trying to bring the rest of the lot into that I-1 zoning.
And if you will remember, we had a large-scale development plan for a phase 2 of this operation at that location. It was noted at that time that that piece would need to be rezoned to C2 to be part of this. Now, the question was asked when it was submitted to Bethel Heights and they approved the original large scale, was it in 2 phases? I can't answer that because I can't find anything that says it was submitted with this. But this organization looked at that phase 2 and approved it, subject to this part being rezoned to C2. I mean to I-1.
What is that one track need to be zoned to I-2 for? Or I-1, I'm sorry, I-1.
They are trying to make it consistent with the rest of the large-scale development plan that they had approved, because part of that is being used for parking lot, and it actually gets into the building itself.
That's the reason.
Correct,
So
right.
to add to that, the Bethel Heights, the reason it wasn't really an issue in Bethel Heights, at the time we went through with that with phase 2, the building was smaller and it was shoved all into the I-1 zoning is what it was. Well, this, that was 2.5 years ago, and they've have more of a need for space, so the building was bigger, and it's a little bit into that C2 zoning, so we've got to bring the whole lot into the I-1 zoning to conform.
And we reviewed that large-scale development plan using the City of Springdale standards. It has the landscaping buffer that it needs to the property owners to the north. It has, where there's residential. They are required, I believe, to do their half of the street, the length of that piece of property. So we're at least getting that much of the street improved with the development that's going on there, which is what our ordinance requires too.
adjacent to the back of that building that's going to get, they're talking about zoning into I-1 there from C2. Do you have any idea?
I'm not sure which properties you're talking about.
If you'll come to the mic, please.
Yeah. So there's a list of properties there to your right of the purple zone, right? If that's changed to I-1 and the building goes into that zone, what are the list of property values there? And how much do you think they're going to decrease from a
Okay, are you
commercial building?
talking about 701, 6009, and 5925?
Yeah, I can't see from here, so.
Okay, those aren't being affected for anything they are today. It still has commercial across the street from it. Today,
Yeah.
that's not being affected by this rezoning request.
And I left
Sure,
it at the
it
office
is.
that someone there would use it, but I guess Tammy dropped it.
Okay, we got somebody who needs to mute their, Brenda, you need to mute, please. We're not affecting the property that's across the street from those three structures because it's already zone C2 and that's not changing. The only thing we're changing is that little area that is hashed in with the yellow boundary. That's all that's being done with this rezoning request. So whatever the property values are today with commercial across the street, that's not being changed.
That's incorrect. That's incorrect.
Excuse me?
That's incorrect. If I go and take your house and I put a commercial warehouse within 100 yards behind your house, it's absolutely going to affect your property value. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
that's your opinion. That's correct. That is your
It's
opinion.
not opinion.
Are you a real estate or an appraiser?
I'm not, but I'm sure I could get my next door neighbor who's an appraiser to come speak as well.
We have an appraiser sitting at the table, so I'm not going to put her on the spot. We're not
Okay.
getting into that discussion because today we're not affecting those pieces of property because they still have the same commercial zoning that they had yesterday and will continue to have it next week if this is approved because that's not changing that portion right across the street. I mean, we can
The
argue this
portion
all
across the
night.
street will change. A small portion of it will change to Industrial 1. Do you not think when they go to resell their house and they back up to an Industrial 1 lot, that's going to change the value of their house?
It's the technicality of what you mean is back up to it. Technically, it does not back up to an I-1 zone.
It's across the street from it. How's that not back up to it?
Across the street from a C2 zone, and I'm not going to say it again.
Are you personally vested in this issue at all?
No, sir, I'm not.
Okay, it seems like you, it just
My
seems like you
job
are.
is to present the
let's-
issues to the planning commission,
Okay.
and that's what I'm doing.
Thank you.
So this has a buffer. We have another consistent property close to this on here that is similar situation as far as it has a commercial buffer in that whole piece. The one question I do have, Patsy, the areas that, and I didn't go back and look at the development that they've done already. They've made improvements to Apple Blossom.
For the first phase that was done, you'll have to answer that question for me, I don't know. We dealt with the second phase because the first phase had already been approved by Bethel Heights and they were already occupying it
That's right.
when it came into the city.
That's right. So we sent both Phase 1 and Phase 2 Bethel Heights, and we were required to improve Apple Blossom the length of both phases, so both properties. So actually, the improvements have been done to the street in front of this piece. But yeah, the street improvements have been done.
And they will be required as part of that large scale to do this additional piece for the phase 2. Dedicate the right of way, curb gutter, and did Bethel Heights require sidewalks? We require
Yes.
sidewalks.
Yeah, there's sidewalk.
Okay.
There's new sidewalk on the
And storm
street.
drainage too.
Yep, every bit of it's brand new.
I mean, that was my big questions that I was going to have is, I mean, you do bring more commercial traffic on Apple Blossom in that whole piece, and I mean, given that this is a new annexed area in the Springdale, I don't know that we have it as far as the master street plan, as far as any improvements to it or anything at this point, but.
Well, and I believe the other side of the street was widened out when the residential subdivision went in, because if you look at the aerial, it looks like the other side of the street looks like it's been widened out. It has curb gutter and sidewalk on that side of the street too. So we have a very narrow portion that's been widened out too.
Yeah, and I'm calling out the fact that, I mean, it's a challenging perspective, because if you look at Apple Blossom, as far as its accessibility from 71, has it been fully made to a commercial to support commercial standards? No, but as far as the properties that are of a commercial or industrial zoning, they do have a responsibility for theirs, that where they do touch as far as Apple Blossom, to make those improvements. And so you're stating that they've either been made or will be as far as to finish out in the event that this is approved this evening.
Correct.
Well, that's already been approved with the large scale.
Right.
Okay.
The street
Well-
improvements are going to be done with the large scale.
Wanted to make sure.
I believe that the street improvements were done for phase 1 and 2.
That's right.
When phase 1 was completed.
okay.
Yeah, so everything.
Including this particular area.
Yeah, everything's complete.
I believe so.
Okay.
Westbound on Apple Blossom, though, is inside the city limits of Lowell. So the truck traffic coming east.
You need to come to the podium to speak and tell us who you are.
Mark Stevens. I live on Bob White Avenue, just to the east of this. The Chantel subdivision butts up against my subdivision. The concern is the north side of Apple Blossom is inside the city limits of Lowell. So what you're dictating them to do only affects eastbound traffic on Apple Blossom. When those trucks turn around and go west, they're in a different city. And that road, you can't control how the upgrades to that road to handle the weight and volume that they're going to generate. And there's no spur line to the railroad, so any expansion in their business is going to be on the streets. And those were designed and built to residential standards. And like I said, there's signs up already. Who's to say they won't take the shortcut on Oak and come out on Wagon Wheel or 264. So I think the area, and I know we're just talking about that little phase right there next to that abandoned house, but it's a bigger scheme going on here because what's next? This is just the beginning for anybody. Who's to say they don't come back and ask for a split and then somebody else wants to go with some different development on that south end of the property? They're not using the entire property. So that's the concern is this is the beginning. Bethel Heights, the old part that you guys absorbed, was never designed for heavy industrial uses. It didn't have the infrastructure to support it. The infrastructure is not there right now. You'd have to have them build in and connect because sewer service is in Lowell. The city of Lowell is covered by the Springdale sewer system.
Right.
And the water lines in the area off of Oak are not designed for heavy volume either. So what's to say what's the water volume going to need to be? A lot of things are up in the air, and we don't know who's next. That's, I think, the biggest concern with everybody that lives in that area. And Chantel's a POA.
Can we speak into the mic, please?
Chantel is a POA. It's not just a regular neighborhood. It's a higher end neighborhood. The 94 houses being built to the north there, it doesn't show them, but they're already pre-sold, most of them. And the South Fork, you know, there's a lot of residential around there that was never anticipated to have this level of growth go on. I know the ABC Lumber Company's there on the west side of the railroad tracks, but they haven't expanded, they haven't come in, and they've been there for like 10 years. So, you know, I'm all for business, but there has to be a balance between residential, business, and then the infrastructure in place, streets, road, and screening. You know, how would you like a warehouse to be parked across the street from you? It may not be on your property, but it might be out your back window. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you all have some comments or questions? No? Okay. I just wanted to make sure on that one.
Quickly,
So.
one more thing. All those brand new homes, no one has a say there. They've bought and they've paid for those homes, and they put money down on those homes, and they can't back out of those contracts. And this was not something they knew when they went in and bought those homes. So 92 new homeowners are going to have this eyesore across from them, and they don't have any knowledge of it right now. So
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the commission? This be a call for the vote.
Can I ask real fast, do we know how many acres that strip of C2 is?
That exists there. Can you measure that real quickly? Okay. I don't know that we know the depth of that. Is it,
I mean, I'd say it's less than a half acre.
yeah, it's 330. Is it a standard
Yeah.
land use? It looks like it would be 330. I don't know that it is. Offhand, those zoning lines were established with the Bethel Heights stuff, and we didn't go back and research all of them to see what the legal descriptions were. We just took it the way they had already done it, yeah.
What does that compare to the other side of Apple Blossom with the warehouse space and stuff like that? If this is about a half acre?
I'm not sure I know what you're talking about. You lost me.
Over by Dixieland Road, where there's a strip of commercial.
Did we do 330 on that one or 660? I don't remember.
I'm not sure off the top
I
of
don't
my
know
head.
either. We'd have to go back and look at that, you know.
I mean, my only comments is that, I mean, and this is consistent, the reason why I bring up the whole warehouse deal on that one, it's what comes first in that whole piece, street improvements or developments. And it's a difficult balance to have in that perspective. A lot of these areas are, classified. You already have a significant area as far as an I-1 piece, and even commercial properties. And you're going to have it, those do come into alignment with residential areas. I live off a wagon wheel, totally get that in that whole piece. And it's a delicate balance. And these are challenging discussions that we need to be able to manage through. But the things that we have to look at is an accountability to the property owners that whatever they're putting there, if it is a commercial property, in the main road that they have accessibility to in this regard, as far as Apple Blossom, the things that I look for in particular is the improvements that they do make to that to make it safe and those types of things in there. North Oak Street, I mean, if it is not designed to be for truck traffic, I mean, that's a challenge that is beyond us to be able to manage. I mean, if it is signed that way, that's probably an enforcement piece that needs to be managed in that perspective. So, I understand the concerns on Oak Street, but, I mean, directly accessing this property from the property, it doesn't in that whole piece. It is access from Apple Blossom in that.
Potholes already up and down Apple Blossom, all over the place. The road is
Well,
great.
you have to come to the mic because these guys can't hear on the phone.
There's already potholes from the truck traffic all over the east part of Apple Blossom.
I understand.
And the road is degrading. They've made
I
multiple
understand.
attempts at.
That's the challenge is that what comes first, the street improvements or the development?
Absolutely.
Well, many times you have to have them happen in parallel or one before the other in order to afford the types of improvements that are made. This property owner in particular has to make, on their piece of it that butts up to their property, they have to make those improvements in there. We can't have them make improvements all the way down Apple Blossom. That's where it then becomes as far as how do we look at that as far as overall master streets, improvement plans and things like that. So you're right. I mean, Apple Blossom has a significant amount of traffic. You also have to call out that Lowell created a lot of that too with their industrial park just north of there with all the access that they have as far as on Apple Blossom as well. So this is a challenging one, and I understand that there's a lot of emotion associated with it. But I do want you to understand as far as the human side of it as well. We experience that with neighborhoods that we live in as well. I can tell you as far as me personally firsthand, I have those types of challenges living off a wagon wheel. So,
Okay, I hear that. I guess my only other argument would be that this should have never been granted in the first place to be changed to I-1. It was not initially industrial until that proposal was brought about through Bethel Heights, who made a mistake. We do not need to change and do further improvements and change further zoning based on an initial mistake. This should never have been here. And I'm sorry if on-time logistics catch the short end of stick through that, but they should have never been zoned I-1 in the first place across from a residential neighborhood. That's all I have.
okay, thank you.
Chairman, just one quick question. In the event we were not looking at this 2-acre rezoning tonight, the entire left side of that parcel is already industrial, correct?
Yes.
Someone could move in there today without this rezoning and do industrial anyway, driving trucks on the road anyway, correct?
Correct. It was zoned industrial.
Excuse me,
Whether
just
that
one
was a
minute.
mistake or not is not something we're discussing. It was zoned to industrial. It is what, and the property owners who bought it No, they had industrial and commercial property to use.
It was just a point of clarification for me to make sure I was understanding what I was looking at. If you have a question, please come to the mic.
Are you allowed to access industrial through C2? Would they not have to build? That's the whole reason they want to build the access point and change it to I-1 so they can have heavy traffic through that area. Is that not right? You have to change that C2 to allow access to I-1.
They do not have access on North Oak Street to that location.
Whether it's zone C2 or I-1, they're not asking for that access to go to that location, no.
Okay, so what the argument here is that someone else could buy I-1 and build on it, correct? But they'd have to have access to it, and they wouldn't have access to it because On-Time Logistics is now butting up to the front of I-1. So they wouldn't have access any other way.
Well, they could petition to build a access off of Oak Road, off of Oak Street that comes back for another review as a large-scale development plan, and it's not a question of whether they can go there or not, it's do they meet the minimum standards? Because the zoning is already there.
I understand that, but we would also be back here doing the same thing.
It's probably true.
So,
Any other questions or comments? This will be a call for the vote.
Call for the vote.
Call for the vote by Mr. Covert.
This is on our 2114, correct?
Correct.
Pardon? Yes. Okay. Parker?
Yes.
Parsley?
Yes.
Tyler?
Yes.
Austin?
Yes.
Covert?
Yes.
David?
No.
Mueller?
Yes.
The rezoning passes 6-1.
Staff will prepare the ordinance that goes to council on the 27th. Okay?
The next item, 21-15, Gerald B. Jones Trust, 679 East Apple Blossom Avenue, from I-1 to I-2, Tract 3B, presented by Jorgensen Associates.
Jared Amo with Jorgensen Associates, discussing the same bit of property. It's on the south end. The owner would like to process, or is processing with the city, a lot split for a 12-acre tract on the south end. He has a potential buyer that would like to be afforded the same use as some of the properties to the south of there, which Hutchins, APAC, and SMG use. Directly south of the property also is the Bethel Heights step system field, which I'm not sure if that's still in use. I think it is, but that one's just right across the south property line. But yeah, that's basically it in a nutshell. We would still we'd be rezoning that 12-acre tract, just a portion of it, from I-1 to I-2, and we would still be leaving that strip that's commercial on the front end. We'd still leave that commercial. So we wouldn't be messing with the C2 zoning on the front. If y'all have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Staff comments, and if you'll also call out what's allowed in an I-2.
Okay, let me start with that. The I-2 General Industrial District is designed to accommodate industrial uses which involve potentially objectionable uses and hazards, and which therefore cannot be reasonably expected to conform to a high level of performance standards, but which are essential to the economic viability of the city. The permitted uses are citywide public uses by right, trades and services, warehousing and wholesale, limited manufacturing, general industrial, parking lot, temporary buildings, self-supporting tower or antenna or monopole, and a transportation service. The conditional uses are citywide uses by conditional use permit, utility facilities, and office studios and related services. Again, this is one of those areas that was brought into the city with the Bethel Heights consolidation. It was already zoned I-1, so it was automatically transferred to I-1. The rezoning request is in keeping with the following goals and policies of the comprehensive land use plan is recommended for approval. Encourage the development of industries that further diversify and stabilize the city's economic base that are compatible to the labor force, raw materials, and industrial climate. Provide space for new and expanding high technology industries. Insulate industrial sites from other activities by providing sufficient buffers to reduce nuisance and hazard exposures, and assure the development of adequate services and utilities, and take maximum advantage of railroad facilities. There is heavy industrial property to the south of this that's been in existence a long time too.
Anything? No. Any questions or comments from the audience?
Yeah, just quickly, the fact that he's pointing out that they're going to sell to an outside buyer or potentially sell to a buyer. So we don't know what's going to go in here. It may not be an extension to the warehouse that's on Time Logistics currently. It sounds like they could put anything in here with an I-2 classification. So we don't know what's going to go in here now. And I think this brings about the point he was speaking of, what's next. So.
Well, and I will tell you, as I say, every time we have a rezoning request, the list of uses that are permitted, anything that's on that list can go into that site. It still has to meet the city's minimum design standards and access and those kind of things. But they don't have to tell us what they're going to use it for when they come in for a rezoning request. That's standard policy. It's not a planned industrial area or a planned commercial area, but you have to consider any of those permitted uses would be allowed in that without having it to be rezoned. It does maintain that buffer to the area to the east with the C2 because they're not rezoning any of it either. So.
Can you read the I-1 acceptable
uses? An I-1 zone has citywide uses by right, trades and services, automotive services, warehousing and wholesale, limited manufacturing, parking lot, temporary building, self-storage, self-supporting tower or antenna structure or monopole, transportation service, commercial assembly. Conditional uses is citywide uses by conditional use permit, utility facilities, offices, studios, and related services, automotive machinery and equipment, open display, retail sales, airport hangar with a flight crew corridor. The major difference between the two is general industrial uses are allowed in an I-2 that are not allowed in an I-1.
Isn't it the opposite?
An I-2 is allowed, general industrial, and I-1 is not. If I said it backwards, that's what it's the heaviest industrial district we have.
I-2.
In I-2, correct. Yes.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from the audience?
So in essence, if Tyson wanted to put a slaughterhouse on that section of property in question, they could, under the zoning?
If it meets the definition of a general industrial, yes, it could.
Could Tyson build a slaughterhouse on that property and be within the zoning if it's moved to I-2?
Well, they could build a processing plant, yes.
Okay, which is a heavy odor type facility. So that answered my question. Thanks.
One more thing, I'm begging you guys, please look at all the green around there that's residential. Please look at what you're potentially putting an industrial complex in. All that green is residential. 230 people have already said they don't want this. I guarantee you, I go to every house in this neighborhood, 99% of them said they are not in favor here. Please, guys.
It's on what is a general industrial use.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from the audience? Anyone online? Oh, okay. Let's do the commission.
I'll just say that for me, I think the railroad plays a big part of this. Because industrial zonings, we usually try to allocate next to rail. And I drove out here today and, you know, everything between Oak and the railroad and south of Apple Blossom in that same area is all industrial. And I know that, you know, we still have to have places to put industrial zonings. I mean, we can't go without industrial zonings in our city. We have to have them. And next to a rail in an area that's already pretty highly concentrated for industrial makes sense to me. That's my comment.
Yeah, Peyton, I understand, and somewhat agree, but at the same time, when you have existing around that, that's why I was asking questions, and I just want to make sure that I have clarity between an I-1 and I-2. You know, when you have studio type, office studios, you know, a cell tower and those types of things, or even light industrial components, assembly, I think where you've got residential coming close in that area, that's probably pretty conducive, but I'm not sure as far as the mass, how is it defined in there?
General industrial?
General industrial.
Right. And I can tell you what is considered specific uses in general industrial, if you think that helps.
That would help. And this is in an I-2.
Right. Uses which cause the greatest adverse environmental impacts because of odor, noise, unsightliness, and air pollution. Many of these involve the processing of raw materials. Permitted uses include all industrial uses not otherwise listed, subject to approval by the building inspector as an industrial use. Agricultural product processing, foundry and metal works, grain elevator, feed mill, metal cans manufacturing, other industrial uses not prohibited, plated ware manufacturing, a sawmill, tanks manufacturing, textile products manufacturing, and toys manufacturing. These are the prohibited uses in an I-2 zone, and they're not allowed anyplace else. Animal fats and oils rendering, vehicle and equipment salvage, explosive manufacturing and storage, junkyards, scrap metal and refuse collection or processing other than as part of a solid waste management plan in which the city participates, petroleum refining or storage other than wholesale distribution facilities in tank lots, ore reduction, slaughterhouse, smelting, tire dumps in excess of 2,500 cubic feet. Those are not permitted uses in Springdale anywhere.
But plastic manufacturing and things like that.
And feed mills and, you know, agricultural production, processing, that's allowed, those kind of things.
In an I-2.
In an I-2, correct. Yep, okay.
Any other questions or comments from the commission?
Just quickly, what, after this potential split, what is the acreage on Tract, on the second tract that you want to change to I-2? What is the acreage?
12.75.
And what is the one north of it, the I-1?
What's the remaining tract?
Yes, sir.
24.36.
Okay.
Is that a flood zone?
There is, no, that's the area to be rezoned, that's not the flood zone, no.
But is there a flood zone in there somewhere?
I don't think
Yes.
there is.
There is flood zone.
Yeah,
There is a recorded one along that creek that's through there, yeah.
Yes, that north line of that hatched area is following the 100-year floodplain.
We're just trying to show you where the area is there.
Any other questions or comments? This will be a call for the vote.
Call for the vote.
Call for the vote by Mr. Covert?
Parsley?
No.
Tyler?
Yes.
Austin?
No.
Covert?
No.
David?
No.
Mueller?
No.
Parker?
Yes.
This rezoning does not pass 5-2.
You have the right to appeal the planning commission's decision to the city council. The appeal has to be filed within 15 days. You have to indicate why you think the planning commission's decision was an error, and you have to notify the adjacent property owners.
Okay, thank y'all.
Okay.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is R 21-16, Forest Dale and Helen Irvin Joint Revocable Trust and Betty Counts, Joanne Wade, 1415, 1309, and 1307 Oak Grove Road, from A1 to MF16, presented by Ramsey Ball with Savant Development.
Howdy, I'm Ramsey Ball. I'm with Savant Development, and I'm representing this application. It's about 16 acres of land to rezone to MF16, which we think fits in with the land use plan and in the neighborhood.
Staff comments?
More than 16 acres, though, isn't it?
It's 16, and it's there's two tracts of land.
Okay, one's 14 and one's 8?
No, it should be 13 and a half and a little 13.8 and 2.8, I believe.
Okay, we'll have to make sure the legal descriptions are correct, because that's not the numbers,
Yes, and
but it's in
we-
that neighborhood, correct?
And we did attach a survey with
Okay.
everything on it.
The adopted comprehensive land use plan indicates commercial use for this area. The rezoning request is in keeping with the following policies of the comprehensive land use plan is recommended for approval. Appropriate locations for single-family and multifamily residential development should be provided based on accessibility, site suitability, utility availability, neighborhood compatibility, and environmental factors. Encourage the development of a variety of housing types appropriate to the size and income of all households living and working in Springdale. Larger multifamily developments should be located on sites with adequate space for off-street parking, accessory structures, and recreational activity, and toward the edge of single-family residential areas where high traffic volumes and taller building heights can be better accommodated.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the audience? To the commission?
Call for the vote.
Call for the vote by Mr. Covert.
Tyler,
Yes.
Austin,
Yes.
Covert,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Mueller,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Parsley.
Rezoning passes 7-0.
Staff will prepare the ordinance to go to council on the 27th.
Thank you, I'll be there.
Thank you, appreciate it. Next item, R 21-17, Springdale Downtown LLC, 500 North Main Street, from PUD to revised PUDs, presented by Brenda Anderson with Blue Crane.
Hi, thank you all. I think you may remember a few years ago, we came before this body and added a camping element for a summer to this site. We had continued at that time the Airbnb use, and then did the camping program for one summer, did not repeat it last summer for a number of reasons. But now we have a new tenant operator in the space, and I believe Scotty Lechuga is there if we want to ask her questions. But basically, she is continuing use of the Airbnb in the large home. But what we're asking to add to our existing PUD approval is the ability to do a coffee shop within that home. There's already a commercial kitchen in place. We've had fire inspector reviews, and we'd like to be able to add that coffee shop cafe element into the use package that's allowed on this site. And then also, we've always had access to the greenway through the gate. You know, Scotty is looking at continuing that, maybe formalizing that a bit more. She'd of course go through a sign permit process to add signage there as allowed. Not really making that application right at this time, obviously. But, you know, be able to, you know, that gate needs a little work on it. It's a little wiggly and it's hard to open and hard to close. So making some improvements there so that folks off the trail can come onto the property and take the steps up to the coffee shop, restaurant, cafe, more of a cafe that's proposed. In addition, she'd like to operate a small bike rental business out of the barn that's located there. And then they're utilizing what had been the event space as a cycling studio where they do coaching and just help people become better riders, if you will, in that spin studio. And that's the essence of our request.
Staff comments?
Those amendments as outlined appear to be in keeping with the intent of the plan unit development as originally adopted and recommended for approval. It's really minor changes to the location as far as that, and gives it a really good use with its close proximity to the greenway and what's going on in downtown. So I don't see it as a problem.
Great.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the audience? It's to the commission.
Call for the vote. Call for the vote?
Yep.
I have a call for vote by Mrs. Mueller.
Austin,
Yes.
Covert,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Mueller,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Parsley,
Yes.
Tyler.
Yes.
This passes 7-0.
The amendment will be put together in the form of an ordinance to be presented to City Council on the 27th.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Next item, R21-18, the Trails and Crossings Apartments, northeast of intersection of Watkins Avenue and 64th Street, from PUD to a revised PUD presented by Craft and Toll.
We have a Craft and Toll person? Oh, okay.
Yes, ma'am. My name is Allie Carr with Craft and Toll. I'm here representing this PUD revision. So what you have before you tonight, Commissioners, is a revision requested to the original PUD. The original PUD development plan did not include phasing for this development, and we are requesting to add 8 phases so that they can receive their C of Os in phases rather than wait on all 17 buildings to be completed. And I am available for any questions.
8 seems excessive.
They are requesting 2 to 3 buildings per phase.
And what do you think the entire time frame is to complete all of the phases?
I wouldn't be able to say for certain, but all buildings are being constructed at the moment. It'll be a matter of months between phases, if that.
And I don't have a problem with the number of phases or all that. Keep in mind that each phase, as it is approved, has to have landscaping done, it has to have adequate parking, it has to have access. And the information from the building department is that phase 1 and 2, 3 are acceptable as presented. The North Street and approach to 56th Street must be completed prior to the issuance of C of Os for phases 4 through 8. Water and sewer service within the phase area shall have been accepted by the water utility. Closeout documents must be submitted and accepted. Just because we're giving you a phasing plan doesn't mean you can start moving into any of those buildings until we process each section as it goes.
Yes, ma'am.
And it will get to the point where more of it has to be completed.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, as long as everybody understands that. And C of O means you're moving somebody in there to rent.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I don't have a problem with that.
Is there a defined overall completion?
When do you anticipate the entire project to be finished out with the last C of Os for Section 8? I mean, are you anticipating that before the end of the year?
I am not sure that I could speak to that.
Okay.
They're not wanting to delay the project at all by proposing this phasing plan. They're just wanting to move residents in as quickly as possible. And so by finishing, all the buildings just aren't at the same stage.
Got it.
They're all up.
Yes, ma'am.
The outside is completed on most of them.
On most of them, yes.
They
They're
are
just,
doing interior fit outs as they go through it.
Yes,
Not
ma'am.
all the concrete has been poured, none of the landscaping has been done, and they just want to be able to move through it
Yes,
as
ma'am.
they start. The clubhouse and these buildings in phase 1 are probably the ones that are furthest along.
Yes, ma'am. And then the ones in phase 2 and so on and so forth.
Right. And then when you get to phase 3, you're good, but before you get to the next one, that access all the way out to both directions, because you're over the number of units and you got to have 2 access points.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
And sorry, I was looking at it from different perspectives on there. So
I was
mean,
as well.
I understand as far as it helps you as far as occupancy faster and those that are completed. So that didn't draw out to me. Usually that's not the case as far as why there's additional phases asked for. So.
Yes, sir.
Well, lots of times we see these projects that come in with phase plans to start with.
Yes, ma'am.
And they just didn't submit a phase plan at the very beginning, and you got them in the PUD if you want to put a phase plan in. Because what we have to see is that there are amenities and the necessary pieces to go with that, as if the rest of it was not completed. In this case, all the buildings are out there. There's no reason why they won't complete the whole thing. It's just allowing them to move people in sooner.
Yes, ma'am.
What is the recourse, Patsy, if for some reason, heaven forbid, something changes in the world and they're not able to finish? What is the recourse that the city has for that?
Well, you only have occupancy for a certain amount of them, and you can't get the rest of them until the other amenities and stuff are put in there. I don't know beyond that.
That's kind of why I was asking, is there a finite date that it has to be done by?
Yeah, and I certainly understand they want to move forward and get that done as quickly as they can. I don't doubt that at all. I'm more concerned with getting umpteen number of buildings up and then just kind of shutting it down and saying, well, you know what, something didn't work out. And so now we just have a tremendous complex with nothing going on. I'm more in favor of kind of just going a piece at a time until you're ready to go into the next one. I certainly understand the need of the client. I'm just curious as to what, if there was a recourse for the city.
I can tell you, Harbor Meadows, we started out with 6 or 8 phases, and I think the last one was 27 or 28. They come back and revised it several times because the building didn't go as fast, but they didn't have structures that are up there. You know, I'm confident with this owner and builder that it's going to be closed out as quickly as possible, and they'll start moving people in. I don't see that as a problem.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, to the commission.
Call for the vote.
Call for vote by Mr. Covert.
Covert?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Mueller?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Parsley?
Yes.
Tyler?
Yes.
Austin?
Yes.
This rezoning passes 7-0.
Staff will prepare the ordinance. It goes to council on the 27th. Okay?
Thank you. Next item on the agenda, R 21-19, Rogers Warehouse Development LLC, 3744 Wagon Wheel Road from C2 to C5, 3652 Wagon Wheel Road from A1 to C5, presented by Bill Mclard.
You don't have anything you want to say?
Well, I thought you were going to say it, but I'll be glad to say it.
Go for it.
Miss Christie and the client have had a conversation, as a matter of fact, last Friday, I guess, and we would like to amend our request to C5 from W1 to, and
Yeah, the original request was for W1, and after visiting with their proposed use, the kinds of uses that they were proposing fit better into a C5. If they decide to go with dedicated warehouses, they can still do it as a conditional use. So this gives them a little bit more flexibility as far as that. And a C5 area is in keeping with the land use plan, which indicates commercial use for this area, and a C5 is recommended for approval. My recommendation was going to be to downgrade it to a C5 when it was presented to start with, but they've already taken care of that and downgraded it to a C5. The property that's adjacent to it on the west is a use that was built when it was outside the city limits, and it's still an A1. So that's kind of a different situation that we have there. They haven't ever come in and rezoned that one either. So.
Any other comments?
No, we did have one comment that we received. This was from the property owner, the north and east of 3744. Agree with the current Springdale land use plan for the property with the intent of C2 district to be concentrated at the intersections of arterial streets. Wagon Wheel Road and Interstate 49 is in the middle of Northwest Arkansas, is one of the last I-49 exits that have not fully developed. 412 bypass interchange was completed recently, and the pandemic hopefully is coming to an end. We think the property around Wagon Wheel and the Interstate 49 is primed to be developed within the Planning Commission's current land use plan. We hope the Planning Commission will resist lowering the land use plan and provide an opportunity to development that will fit the Springdale plans. So the C5 is in keeping with the commercial as shown on the land use plan.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the audience? Anyone online? Okay.
I'll be glad to answer questions, but this one to me is sort of a no-brainer.
Yeah. It's to the commission. Any comments or questions from the commission? This be a call for the vote.
Call for the vote.
Vote by Mr. Covert.
David?
Yes.
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Parsley?
Yes.
Tyler?
Yes.
Austin?
Yes.
Covert?
Yes.
This rezoning passes 7-0.
Staff will prepare the ordinance that goes to council on the 27th.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, appreciate it. Next section, conditional use, C21-05, Sunny and, I'm gonna mispronounce this.
We were waiting to see you do this with.
Calphone Chun Savang, 901 Dorman Street, use unit 42, church synagogue in a C2. Also deviation of off-site parking, presented by Ned Lear.
Hi, ma'am. That's good
You
evening.
can take your mask down so we can hear you better.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
If you can pull that mic down, and if you'll speak into the mic there, if you'll tell us your name.
My name's Sunny.
Okay.
I am the owner of the building on 901 Norman Street.
You're the owner of the property?
Yeah, I own the
Okay.
property.
Okay. And the request is to put a church in this location?
Yes.
Okay. You want me to go ahead and do my comments?
Yeah, go
and
ahead.
From there. The ingress and egress to the property is acceptable for commercial use and very limited for church use. The off-street parking and the loading areas are the biggest concern for this piece of property because most of the parking that would be required for this church has to be off-site. And I understand you have an agreement with the bank to use some of their parking for the church
Yeah.
and for Angus Jack's, which is to the south of it.
I think we're gonna build the parking.
I'm sorry?
I think we need to build a parking.
Okay. The problem I have with that parking being at the church as the adjacent or the off-site parking for this is there's no access along that with a sidewalk or anything, and everybody would be required to walk down the street. And I think it's beyond the 300-foot limit for off-site parking. The site itself cannot accommodate a church and the number of parking spaces that they would need to operate at that location. How many spaces do you have on the site itself?
It's I have to ask, how many? 12. 12 space around the building.
12 spaces is all you have. And the proximity to the neighborhood and the requirement of the people using off-site parking, could you not get any parking from the commercial businesses next door to the east? Would they not agree to any additional parking?
I think they agree. They use the parking like, how many? 10 of them.
We have First Security. We have Angus Jack's, but the property that's to the west of it where that commercial is, you don't have a signed agreement with them. My concern is that having to access it down a street that doesn't have any sidewalks. And I'm not sure this is a good location for a church. So I can't recommend this conditional use be approved.
Is there any comments from the fire department on this one as well?
Blake, have you all looked at this?
Yes, sir. Oh, stop.
I'm Blake Holt with the fire department. We did look at it. We don't have concerns.
What did you say was the occupancy limit for it?
I don't have that with me. What's the size?
I don't know how much of the area they were going to be using for the sanctuary itself. And the requirement is one parking space for each 4 seats that are allowed. I don't know how big of an area that you all said could be used for the sanctuary portion of it.
Well, we don't set that limit. We just approve a plan that they provide us, and so.
Or a seating plan for it, and you haven't seen one?
Not to my knowledge. I think we looked at it to see if it could possibly be used as a church, and it could, depending on their arrangement. But we haven't approved a occupant load yet.
Okay, so we can't really set the parking requirements till we know what the occupancy load is.
I think that's fair, yeah.
Ed, do you have comments?
Yeah, I did an occupancy calculation on the sanctuary. I think it's in the paperwork, and I wanted to say it was like 42, maybe, I know it's less than 50, but it might have been like 42 for the number of occupants. It's not a very large sanctuary. It's not even as big as this room here.
Okay, they asked for 20 parking spaces from the bank and 10 from the Angus Jack, so that's 30 parking spaces, and they have 12. I don't know. I don't have your calculation, so I don't know what it is.
In the pre-application piece, it says use unit designation church 42.
Yeah. I mean, that's the use unit number is 42.
Well,
but-
he had mentioned 42 on there. I didn't-
Yeah.
That's where I saw the 42, but I know that because it didn't have to have a rear exit, it's less than 50.
So based on 42 stalls at 4 per stall, you're looking at 168 occupancy in a building that holds less than 50. Did I understand that correctly?
Well, I don't know.
I guess what I'm saying is if they're asking for 42 total stalls, right, with everybody included plus their 12, that's 42. Each stall is for 4 people. That's 168 potential people attending that church or synagogue. But if I understood Ed correctly, the building is not bigger than this room. I don't know whether you're going to fit 168 people in there is my concern. And where
I don't
those
know.
folks are going to travel up and down that street is quite a large body of people to move back and forth. I don't know that they would have that many. I'm just saying
I
that's
don't
your
either.
cap.
But we base the calculations on what is the square footage and the maximum occupancy, not whether they have 25 people or 200 people at that location. It's just,
Well, they can't have 160 people, right? Didn't we just say the occupancy, the max occupancy was 42?
we don't know that for a fact. The 42 is what the use unit is a use unit 42, not 42 parking spaces. They ask for off-site parking of 30 spaces, and they have 12 on site, which would be 42. I don't know where that 42 number came from.
Here's the only, is somebody going to speak? I'll be quiet.
Like you have something?
Oh, no, I was just gonna say, we would probably have to go back and redo it. Typically, what we do is just a courtesy site visit to see if it would be appropriate.
Yeah.
And Ed may have done a calculation, we have not, as a fire department, we never saw a plan, so if one exists, I'm not aware of it.
Okay, do you all have a plan for how you would do the seating in the structure itself? Do you have a seating plan with pews or chairs to know how many people will fit into that?
Need to come up to the mic.
We've had a challenge from the beginning of discussing how we get this together.
Hello, I'm going to interpret for him. This is Pastor Ned Lair. He's the pastor for that church. He said he's already turned in all the paperwork to the city, which includes how many people are going to be in there. And he mentioned that it said 42 people, it's the max.
Okay, I don't know where that number came from, that 42 people was the most they can have it in there. If that's the case, if the maximum occupancy is 42,
You're covered with the 12
they're covered
stalls.
with the 12 spaces that are on the site, if we are limiting their occupancy to 42. I don't know where we got all these, the number 42.
Well, and if there's going to be growth in that, that's where I would be concerned from a
Yeah.
fire safety perspective. Anything beyond that amount in that whole piece, so.
Yeah, and Patsy was right, when we do the calculation, it's based on square footage, not on what we're told they're gonna use it for. So it will be an occupant load for the building, period.
So I don't know. But my concern is a major portion of that parking has to be off-site. The area that they're going, the distance they're going.
If it's above 42,
Yeah, the distance, well, if it's above 12, and people have to walk, and there's no sidewalks in that area, from Angus Jack's is one thing, and I don't know that they have that many parking spaces to give up. But when you get to the bank, you're walking down the street, there's no sidewalks.
okay.
My only thing, if it's time for us to make a comment,
Yeah,
the only thing.
hang on just one second, Peyton. Any questions or comments from the audience? Just want to make sure if there's anyone that was on the phone. No?
And I have one other comment.
Okay.
We have the noise ordinance that has to be abided by if they have loud music because they're adjacent to a residential area. We have had that experience in some cases where we have had noise issues, so they have to be aware of that as well.
Okay. Go ahead, Peyton.
And maybe the best thing to do is just table this, and so we can get everything figured out, so what they actually need. But I would like to, I'm in favor of making this work just because Holtz Avenue on a Sunday doesn't strike me as a huge traffic street. And so even if they park at First Security, they walk 200 feet down Holtz Avenue to the place, and combined with what Angus Jack would allow them to use. I'm really in support of us trying to get agreements that avoid us, that keep us from creating more parking lots, if that makes sense. And if we have all of this parking at Angus Jack that won't go used on a Sunday morning, and all of this parking at First Security that won't go used on a Sunday, and they've agreed to let them have the spots. I understand the noise ordinance, and they would have to, abide by that. But I would, I would like to try to make this work for them if we could, just because I don't see it as, we're not crossing Sunset to get there, if that makes sense. It's just, I don't see it as a huge threat, but that's just my personal opinion. So maybe we need to get the numbers in order, but
can I ask the question of how many services you have services on Sundays?
This is it's only being requested for Sunday.
the application I saw only requested Sunday.
Only Sundays?
Sundays only.
Okay, you would have no meetings, nothing else during the week?
He says, the pastor says, the meetings might arise, but it won't be the whole church, maybe just him and the deacons and the board members. But as far as service, it's on Sundays.
That's a problem, though, for us to be able to approve something like this. We can't have a moving target. You know, the church has got to put something down that they anticipate will be all the time. We can't. That's going to change my mind, okay? Because we can't have a moving target, in my opinion.
Okay, if we agree on maybe just 2 days a week, one day during the week.
Let's do this. I think it's actually a good recommendation that you guys do table this to the next meeting. I'm with Peyton. I mean, I think we want to make this work for you all, but there's enough gaps in here that it becomes questionable as far as, I mean, because this is a conditional use in this whole piece, and we have to pay close attention to things in that regards. I think you guys need to work through as far as for a larger group that you're wanting to worship, is that just Sunday? And I think the answer is yes. What do you want to use the building for the rest of the week? Because it sounds like you do have some uses in there, but you need to define that so that we clearly understand those pieces. And then we need to really understand the occupancy piece that you expect to get to in your max in that perspective, because that's going to define the parking. That's also going to define as far as the occupancy overall that is safely where you guys can meet to that location from a fire code perspective, okay? So I think there's enough in here that I'm struggling to really, with confidence, be able to have as far as a yes vote for a conditional use here with having some of these gaps that still exist.
Okay, so what can we do to reassure you?
Okay, you need to get with the fire marshal and the building inspector to talk about what's the occupancy, what's the maximum number of people that you can have in there. And then we need to know the hours of operation. If you're going to have services on Sundays, do you have them on any of the nights during the week?
Okay.
Do you have meetings? Do you have classes that meet during the week? Anytime you're going to occupy the building, we need to know that as well.
Okay.
Okay?
Sounds like a plan. Thank you.
Okay.
So we need to know that he's in agreement to table this.
Okay. Yeah, the pastor is saying that he had already met with the fire marshal and the building people. They've already met before several times.
But they're not giving us the information. You don't have the information that you need from them to set the occupancy limit, correct? Okay.
I will just tell the applicant that I will not vote for this with the lack of specificity around the plan. So,
Okay.
yeah,
So
we need
can
to
we?
get some more specifics.
All right, so maybe next time we come back, he's gonna come back with a specific as how many people in the congregation?
No.
What exactly,
It's not necessarily the number that's in the congregation, it's how many can you put in the building?
okay,
Because we're assuming you may start with a smaller congregation and it's gonna grow over time. We have to make sure that the maximum number that can be in there, we know what that is. You
Well,
can't
good.
come back and have 200 people in there in 3 months because your congregation has grown that much.
Do you think it would be good, Patsy, if maybe they tabled tonight and then reached out to your office tomorrow, and she'll walk you through exactly what it is that you'll need to bring back for the following month?
Well, we've
Or-
been over it a couple of times,
Yeah.
we're having trouble.
He's just interpreting. We need to make sure that you
Yeah.
guys are in alignment to table it.
Okay, he understands.
Okay, great. Thank you, guys. Yeah, make sure he comes to work with Patsy's office on it, okay?
And,
with the fire marshal.
right,
And with building inspection.
yes.
So planning, building inspection, fire marshal, okay? Thank you. Next conditional use, C 21-07, ISC Properties, 2200 South Old Missouri Road, use unit 25 and C5, presented by Greg Edwards and Andrew Phlox. Hi there.
Hello. I'm Andrew Phlox.
Okay.
I'm Greg Edwards.
If you want to let us know what you want to do on this use unit?
I guess if you want to. Yeah. We're asking for a conditional use for business in Springdale.
Okay, this building used to be zoned industrial, and it was zoned back to C5 to accommodate some uses that you put in the building previously.
Yes, ma'am.
What they're proposing now to do is a limited manufacturing operation where it's a simple loose leaf tea company, and they come in and they blend teas together and they ship them out
Correct.
all over wherever they ship them to.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so in order for that to operate in a C5, they have to be granted the conditional use for limited manufacturing. The ingress and egress is acceptable, the off-street parking and loading is acceptable, the refuge and service area is acceptable, utilities are acceptable, there was no extra screening and buffering because it's in an existing building. The signage, I'm assuming you're going to put a sign on the existing signs that's at the structure? We're not setting another sign?
No, that's correct.
Okay. The yard requirements are acceptable, the size and shape of the site is acceptable. It's generally acceptable with the adjacent properties and other property in the general district. So it's recommended for approval.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the audience? To the commission?
Call for the vote?
Call for a vote by Mr. Covert.
Parker,
Yes.
Parsley,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Austin,
Yes.
Covert,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Mueller.
Yes.
Conditional use passes 7-0.
Staff will prepare the resolution, goes to council on the 27th. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next conditional use, C 21-08, Ola Walton, 4169 Bel Air Road, tandem lot split in an SF2, presented by ESI.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jason Apple with ESI. Here representing Ms. Walton. She's with us as well if you have questions for her. What we're trying to do is create split off a piece of property about 2 acres on the south side of her property to sell to one of her neighbors. It is a tandem lot, so we're requesting a conditional use for that. I'll answer any questions.
Staff comments?
And the access easement would be on the east side
East
of the
side,
property?
yes.
Okay. The only comments that, oh, well, I don't know that we have any comments as far as that's concerned. The access easement will be paved? You didn't ask for a variance.
Correct. Is that just when a structure's built? Is that how that works?
Or you can get the lot split approved, it has to have paved access to it. Either that or you gotta come back and ask for a variance to not do the paved access point. We do have a letter that was submitted by Pearl McElfish. She is the out of town and she supports the land division. They plan to purchase the land. The land is adjacent to their land on the northwest corner, and they have no current plans to build on the land itself. We did have another comment from an adjacent property owner, which we can read into the record, but I think you have a copy of it if you all want to. You want me to read it into the record, I can do that too.
Patsy, you have a question? Patsy, I have a question. If that lot gets combined to the other lot that they're purchasing,
We can do that without a tandem lot.
okay.
I mean, without it being a tandem lot, but it'll have to be combined into two lots together. Okay.
Understood.
I'm good with it just being part of the records in here. I've read through it. I think everyone else has.
I don't know if Mr. or Mrs. Bond is here if they want to comment.
Any questions or comments from the audience? Commission?
Call for the vote.
Call for vote by Mr. Covert?
Parsley,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Austin,
Yes.
Covert,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Mueller,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Conditional use passes 7-0.
Staff will prepare the resolution, goes to council on the 27th.
Thank you.
Next item, C-2109, Friendship Cemetery Association, 1649 Van Trest Farms, tandem lot split in an A1, presented by Mike Overton and Dewey Johnson.
Commissioners, I'm Mike Overton. I'm representing Friendship Cemetery Association. We're asking for a tandem lot split because the 3 acres have been sold. We do not have 200 feet of frontage. We do have a 60 by 445 foot drive easement going back to this property. For the last 39 years, it's been used as residence and A1 property, and we're just asking for a tandem lot split.
Comments?
I don't have any issues. Did you work with Springdale Water and the water aspect to it?
We got 3 different easements for them, yes,
Okay,
they're all
and-
recorded.
Okay, and it is, has a septic system that's already on the site too?
Correct,
Which is contained inside the lot to be created?
correct.
And the rest of the property will remain with the cemetery?
Has remained with the Cemetery Association, correct.
You have another couple of responses of people who are concerned about whether property was going to be split for development and or for other agricultural uses. We can read those, or we can put them into the record, whichever you want to do.
I've had a chance to review them. I think the commissioners have as well, so I'm good with submitting it for the record.
They'll be included in the record.
Anything else? Any questions or comments from the audience? To the commission?
Call for the vote.
Call for vote by Mr. Covert?
Tyler,
Yes.
Austin,
Yes.
Covert,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Mueller,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Parsley,
Yes. Passes 7-0.
Staff will prepare the resolution, goes to council on the 27th.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see, preliminary plats, replats, final plats. We have preliminary plats, 21-04, Collins Cove, west side of 56th Street, south of County Line Road, presented by ESI.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jason Apple with ESI. I believe this is the 3rd time I've presented this project. This is a 20-acre property with 56 lots, zoned SF1. The rear 5 acres, or the west 5 acres, is in Elma Springs. We are going through their plating process as well, and it'll be heard Thursday night at Elm Springs. And I'll answer any other questions.
Staff comments?
There are not any planning comments, but I have a couple of questions. Are the lots that are in Elm Springs, will they be serviced with Elm Springs wastewater treatment?
Yes.
Okay. And the access road being built across that, and that tie into the south is just to meet fire access and the ability to turn around? You don't anticipate connecting it to the
Correct.
property to the south, right?
Correct, yes.
Okay. And all we're looking at is the portion that's in Springdale, and it would be platted as a Springdale subdivision, and the Elm Springs portion would be platted as an Elm Springs portion. The only concern I have with that is if Elm Springs doesn't move forward with it, we don't have a turnaround place for the fire trucks. And so that when we get to the final plat stage, if that hasn't been approved and that street construction is there, there'll have to be some kind of turnaround
Sure.
put into those areas for the fire department. Correct?
Understood.
Okay.
And it's been zoned in Elm Springs, so the zoning's appropriate for this lot size. So I think it's the same stage as we are with the city of Springdale at this point. But
Okay.
yes, I understand.
Katie, do you have some engineering comments?
Yes, I have a few comments. I think a lot of these can be settled pretty quickly with the construction plans. Show minimum finished floor elevations for lots adjacent to swales. We need a stockpiling note, standard stockpiling note on the site plan. Show existing and proposed streetlights and note who is responsible for maintenance and billing. Provide an erosion control plan for the grading phase, and then submit the grading permit application.
And there again, that's only for the Springdale portion. They'll have to do the same thing if that exists in Elm Springs, correct?
Yes.
And the streetlights will have to be such that those that are in Springdale go to Springdale and those that are in Elm Springs, okay.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
Is that it?
that's all I have.
Any questions or comments from the audience? Yeah, if you'll come to the mic, state your name and address, please.
I'm Mickey Owen. I live at 394 Fredonia Street in Elm Springs. I back up to the northwest corner of this property. Yes, this is the third time here. Several years ago, before I built my house, I addressed this, and I was told it'd be built with 1 acre lots, which was great. Don't really like see it going into these small lots. I don't know what size houses or anything like that, so I'll be watching it closely. Engineering notes, lot 5, where they have that retention pond noted. I noticed there's a 12-foot difference between the bottom of the pond and the top of the overflow. That pond needs to be where it drains out completely dry every time. I understand they needed to limit the flow. Under lot 8, this is kind of tied together, there's an old pond that was filled in mostly with wood and some dirt that's going to need to be fixed first. To the north of this is a lot of area that is not well taken care of anything and contains a lot of wildlife. I've spent several years cleaning cottonmouths and copperhead snakes out of the area because of that pond. When they filled it, I got rid of them for the area. If we have another pond there standing with water, they will be back. There's a creek to the north of it that they tend to stay down in, so that's there. The other comment I have on that is the 56th Street. I'm not sure what the long-range plans are for Springdale for that. I have not checked into any of that, but currently, as the gentleman made a point earlier, which comes first, infrastructure or development? 56th Street took a real bad beating this past winter, and I don't believe it'll hold another 60 houses in the area. Could be upwards towards 120 cars a day. Be a lot of traffic. It is developing in that area. I don't know how Gene George is going to play into that plan either, which could help if it was in the right place. Elm Springs, I'll hold all my comments for them when I get there. Thank you.
Thank you.
The developer will be required to improve their half of the street, 56th Street, the width of this, unless the council waives that, and that's an issue they have to take up with the council. The detention pond, Jason,
Actually, I have one further comment on that. I that wasn't included. So that is a retention pond. It's supposed to be a water feature, and they will have to provide a maintenance plan for that. That includes aerators and regular and annual maintenance to be performed.
Okay, as a retention pond, then it's not signed over to the city, it belongs to the POA? I'm asking.
I'm not sure the correct answer to that. It still is required to have a drainage easement there. The POA is required to maintain the quality of the water, though.
That's fine. Well, POA will maintain it.
Okay, so it really listed
then-
as a common area and will be shown as that, as a lot, and it's not transferred to the city as a detention pond normally is. This will be a feature that the
Correct.
POA has to take. Then we need the POA documents and stuff that needs to be submitted with the final plat.
That's fine.
Okay.
Or we'll modify it to detention, so either one, we'll let you know. But right now it's shown as retention, but if we modify it to detention, then. it
Well,
won't
if
be
you modify it to be detention, Katie, doesn't that have to come back for review before we move forward? Because if we approve it with a preliminary plat with it as a retention facility, you'll have to come back and change the preliminary plat if it goes to detention.
It still meets the same drainage criteria, but I'll leave it at retention.
Sure, if they're not changing the lot lines, and the function's still the same, then I don't think that would be too much of a problem, but we can discuss that if they want to change it.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments from the audience?
My name is Henry Hale. I live at 5781 Saddle Ridge, just up the road from there. Just wondering how many acres this development takes? 20 acres? Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? To the commission? This would be a recommendation.
This would be a motion subject to staff comments.
Motion subject to staff comments.
Motion by Mr. Covert,
Second.
second by Mrs. Mueller.
Austin,
Yes.
Covert,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Mueller,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Parsley,
Yes.
Tyler.
Yes.
Preliminary plat passes 7-0. Thank you. Next item, preliminary plat 21-05 Noah's Landing, east side of 56th Street, south of County Line Road, presented by ESI.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jason Apple again with ESI. This property is directly southeast of the property we just submitted. It's 16 acres, 56 lots, and I'll answer any other questions.
Staff comments?
I'm sorry, 54 lots.
I thought I had 54. Okay,
My
54.
fault.
Okay. You need to provide full street improvements for Street B. Now, I understand that is being considered to be an emergency access only? If that's, is it an emergency access only, or is it another street access?
It's emergency access only, is the
Okay.
intent.
Okay, we're going to have to discuss that. Ed, you know better than to do that. Debbie's going to be after you. You know better than that.
The accesses have to be 1/3 the diagonal of the development. And you saw in the previous subdivision, there were 2 cul-de-sacs that were connected together at the top. This, if you look, there's over 30 lots in just that section that comes from the other side. So in order for him to do 2 cul-de-sacs, that's got to be a city street, so we guarantee it's paved. Guarantee it's maintained.
So it has to be built to city standards as a public street or an approved private street where they maintain it.
We don't care as long as the city accepts it.
City's what?
The city accepts it.
Okay, it has to,
Well, they could waive sidewalks or anything like that if they want to do that, but it would have to be a city street and it would have to be maintained by the city.
Because there's not a turnaround?
No, because you've got too many lots for just one entrance. And it's not a fire access, it doesn't meet the diagonal rule, you're calling it 2 separate standalone cul-de-sacs. Because you got over, you got what, 60 lots, 50-some lots?
I guess I misunderstood our
Yeah.
discussion. I thought we had a turnaround.
Can you come up to the mic, Jason?
Yeah, I thought we had a turnaround that would satisfy, just like the previous one did. Maybe I misunderstood.
And it would if that was a city street, but that's just a 20-foot wide paved section of road. So you're saying that people aren't going to drive on it, it's just going to be there. Now you've got one whole subdivision where most people will go to the north.
Right, but it
needs
still
that
gives you
same-
secondary access into there, right? Through a private paved road that's 26 feet wide.
Yeah, but the rules say that you have to have 1/3 the diagonal between the entrances, and then through a compromise with the fire chief several years ago, we started allowing this as 2 cul-de-sacs. And now you're saying, well, it's not 2 cul-de-sacs, it's a loop with a fire access road that doesn't meet the diagonal rule. So we're getting, it's not a cul-de-sac anymore, it's a loop that doesn't meet the diagonal.
Okay, so what you're saying is it has to be a street on the south side, which is shown on here as Street B, has to be built to city standards.
Or it's above my head, and then it has to go back to the fire chief, because he made the original agreement with the dual cul-de-sac concept.
Okay, and then the other comment is the existing structure that's on there? Is it, you will have to do street improvements along the front of it unless there is something that splits that off with an informal plat before this thing moves forward?
Right, so we did submit that yesterday.
You submitted it yesterday?
Yeah, so we submitted it yesterday so that it was in the queue. And so that was this revision. So I also understand that the zoning didn't happen because this has got to be rezoned. And it didn't make it to.
We don't have the zoning application. We didn't have the filing fee. We don't have the application itself.
Okay.
We had the
So
letter
I
that
think-
shows that it was sent out for zoning, but we didn't get the rest of it.
So I think with all of it, I think we just need to table.
Okay.
And then we can come back, we'll get the lot split done for next
Okay.
meeting. And then I'll meet with Ed again, work out fire access.
Because that's an issue you have to deal with
And then we'll
through
get
the
the
fire
zoning
code.
done. So
Right. Okay.
I was thinking it was going to get, or I thought it was going to get tabled anyway for the zoning, so I'll just do that and then we'll.
Well,
see
had
you
we
next
not
month.
had this other issues, we could have approved it subject to the rezoning being done.
Sure.
But you need to address that issue with Ed
Understood.
and with the fire marshal. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Which means this will be put on the agenda for the next meeting, which is May the 4th at 5:30, and it will be on the front of the agenda. And they don't have to send out notifications again,
Yeah, if-
but they will be sending out notifications for the rezoning.
At 5 o'clock, not 5:30.
Okay, I'm sorry, at 5 o'clock.
Since we got neighbors here, I guess we could hear from them. I mean.
You want to let the
if
neighbors make
that's
comments?
appropriate.
Yeah, I think it would be good since they are here for it. So any comments or questions that you do have?
I'd like to know what the current zoning is for that property. Is it R3?
Currently it's zoned A1, and you would be asking for SF2, right? Right. SF2 would be what they would be asking for.
So you'll receive another notice.
So how does that translate into 54 homes on 16 acres?
Well, the minimum lot size in SF2 is 70 foot of frontage on a public street and 8,000 square feet per lot. And I think all of those lots meet that minimum lot size.
Okay, that's what you're going to take a look at the next meeting?
We will consider the rezoning at the next meeting, correct? Yes.
Okay, so that's going up to what, about an R5?
No, they will come in and ask for an SF2, which is single-family lots, no more than 4 units per acre, minimum lot size of 70 foot of frontage, 8,000 square feet per lot.
Okay, and let's see. All right, that'll take care of it the next one.
All right, any other questions?
I'm Doug Sarver. I live on Saddle Ridge also. some of this is stacked, this concern is stacked on top of one another, as you know, as the next that's coming up. There'll be a third that's going to be presented at a point for 250 homes. When we add those three on top, our concern is infrastructure and actual zoning per acre, homes per acre. You add all that in there, 2 cars per home. We got 700 vehicles coming up and down 56th, and it is not ready for any of that. So that's the comment on that. We cannot take these individually. We take them individually, there's a lot of damage to that.
Well, the Planning Commission has to look at them as individual projects that's being submitted, and we review those to see if they meet the minimum standards. How they impact the area is something else we have to deal with on the other side. What other off-site improvements need to be done? How are they accessing those? But, you know, that all comes as we go through all this stuff too. And 56th Street is shown as a major collector. Somebody have to tell me because I don't remember. They will be required to do their half the street, the width of their property. That's all that they're required to do at this point. We'll have to look beyond that and see when is the city moving forward with the extension of 56th Street. I can't answer that because that's, you know, we probably need to get the mayor here to address that issue. The other one could have access to 48th Street, which would, and we'll have to address that issue when the other one comes in. It is still, it has some issues that we had to address. That's why it's not on the agenda tonight too. Yeah. Okay. And it goes back to that issue, which comes first, the development or the streets? And that's the issue we deal with all over town as everything has been occurring too. So
It's a challenge. It's a healthy challenge, but it's a challenge. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just live north of that development going in there, and we went through this about a year ago, I think it was, and they denied it back then because of 56th Street and all the traffic and stuff on it. And I'm just wondering, they allow bicycles on there now, or we have to share the road with bicycles, and there can be 20, 30 bicycles going down that road. And where they got the 4 lane or the 3 lanes there where they developed it, they won't pull off over on the side and let the cars go by. They'll sit right in there and bicycle their 15 miles an hour or whatever they're doing. And that's my concern, is all the traffic and the bicycles and all that on 56th Street and County Line Road with the development going down about the park and stuff down there. They're just clogging the road, and they ain't got no road out there. So that's my concern.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay. So we're going to table this to the next meeting, and like Patsy said, there won't be notifications sent out, but this will be at the next Planning Commission meeting that is at 5 p.m. in May. In there. Okay?
Thank you.
All right, thank you. You need a quick...
I need a quick break.
Okay. B21-23, Charles and Nancy Boston, 1901 Stout Drive, variance for deviation of paving requirement, presented by Charles and Nancy Boston.
Yes.
And I apologize if I got your last name wrong.
Yeah, it's Boston, that's fine. That's fine. I'm Charles, this is Nancy. We are at 1901 Stout Drive in Springdale. We face Stout Drive, and that's where our driveway, you know, is that goes from the street to the house. What this is about is on the back. We go back to Silent Grove Road on the back, and there's a picture, and you can see that I had added some gravel. Actually, there's been gravel there for a long, long time. It's been there for 2 or 3 years. And what you see, I added some. That was back in January. I added a couple of trailer loads. I've got a little trailer. But I go up in there to put my camper, and then I also go up in there in the wintertime to put my firewood. I don't know if you can see it in there or not, but I back up there in the wintertime to put my firewood. And we were getting erosion and ruts. We were getting a lot of ruts and all, and that's what this was supposed to, I wasn't trying to make an issue. I thought I was making it better. I've got some pictures here. You got them now? Of what it's like.
Here. They're going right.
Yeah, you can see it from both sides. I mean, it's the
the gravel's not normally white.
No.
You can barely see it usually. In fact, you couldn't see it before.
Yeah, and it's thinned out to the point now that.
But he just now put it in.
In
And then,
January.
of course, you can see in those pictures how the grass is already grown up all around it, and it's only been a month since the snow has left.
And I wasn't trying to make a surface area. I know that's what he complained about, and I understand a surfacing material. I wasn't trying to make a surface material. I was just trying to gain a little access and keep it nicer, because it was getting rutted and muddy and, you know.
And we have asked all of our neighbors,
Yeah.
and all of them have been in support of it. And they even said, do you want us to write a letter? And I said, you know, if they felt like they needed to say something, they could come up here, but
Okay.
we didn't see
And
any
they
point in doing a letter.
Right.
Great, thank you. I think this was brought forth to us because of code enforcement.
You want to let us, give us some insight on this? Were there complaints about this?
Yeah. If you'll come up to the mic, or you can go
Can
to
you
the
give
table.
him an
either one, so.
opportunity? Okay.
Good evening, Commissioner. Springdale Code Enforcement, under direction of Ron Finley. Yeah, we received a complaint concerning the gravel off Silent Grove up to the camper shed. It is zoned also SF2, and the camper, I believe, was placed there about 2019. And so we told them the gravel must be removed in accordance with the 2006 ordinance of the gravel ordinance. So they have contacted planning requesting a variance for the surface.
Okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any staff comments? Any questions or comments from the audience? Just to the commission.
I don't so much have a question. Well, I do have a question. I'm still not following. What was the complaint about? That there was just gravel there? Was that? I got it. Okay.
How many years have you been using this location to store your camper?
About 3.
Okay.
But we've been using it for the wood and for other things, and there was some surface area. There's been there for years.
The gravel's been there for a while.
Yeah. But we just put the new gravel out in January. And so it showed up because it is white. It hadn't had time to get dirty.
And if it makes a difference, it's just this couple, I've got a little trailer that's 5 by 10, and I took it and I did all that by hand. I shoveled that out all by hand. And like I say, it's soon to be covered up in grass, and I don't
You
think
can see
they'll
how
ever
much
notice
it's
it.
grown in the short time since, you know, it was like that in January, and the snow left, what? When did we go on?
Whatever,
In February, and already the grass is about to cover it up.
So your intent is just to minimize the erosion in that whole
Yes,
piece
it
there,
is.
not necessarily to make it a
That's-
permanent use driveway in that
That's
perspective.
absolutely true.
Patsy, I went out today and took photos. It's almost grassed over now.
Okay. Well, they're allowed to park their RV in the rear portion of the lot. There's not an issue with that. And it says, provided, however, any such driveways would be required to be paved if the use and maintenance of such driveway and parking area lapse for a period of 1 year or in the uses served by such driveway is expanded. I mean, if it had gravel before,
It did.
and they're just adding some, it's already growing over, do they really need a variance? Because they're just keeping it from getting rutted. It's basically what they're trying to accomplish, and you don't use it very often. It just seems a little,
Yeah, my concern, what I have to look at on here, and I can't speak on behalf of the entire commission on this, is that, you know, if we grant you this variance, if the property is sold and it goes to somebody else, do they see that as an opportunity? Is that a permanent accessibility in that whole piece that goes with the sale of the house? I mean, I understand your intent. You're just putting it there just to help the erosion, and you intentionally want the grass to grow over it so you're not seeing it as a driveway for sale.
Right.
Does it make a difference? It does end right there. It's not like you could drive through the property and get to the other side or something. You can't get through because there's fence, there's pool and some other things right there. So that is where it ends. It's not like you could drive
No,
through.
that's true.
Mhm.
I had a question if it was the right time. I can't, is it?
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, so the issue is, I want to make sure I'm understanding it correctly. The issue is that there was a code enforcement and that it's supposed to be paved because there's gravel there.
You gotta
Come up to
come
the
over
mic, he
here.
won't hear you.
We just received the complaint because of the gravel. A lot of citizens don't like gravel, and when they see it, they call us, and we just received a complaint and we addressed it.
And the complaint was in nature to that there was gravel and there's not supposed to be based off of our ordinances, right?
Yes, sir.
And it was a citizen of the city that brought the complaint to you, or a,
It was a citizen of Springdale.
okay.
I guess my question is that this was a, and this is just my personal opinion here, so, but we have this was brought to us, and code enforcement's doing their job by, bringing it to us, but it was a citizen complaint, but yet, am I hearing this correctly, that none of the neighbors opposed this and actually would write a letter in support of this?
Yeah, you'll have to speak into the mic, he can't hear you.
That's absolutely true. All of the neighbors said, let us write a letter. Do we need to come to city council? What can we do?
Patsy, did we receive any letters against this? Any emails, letters, calls, anything like that?
We didn't have anything. There is a provision in the ordinance that says, and this is in the section concerning parking restrictions in residential zone districts. It says, under variances, bill of assurance or performance bond, a bill of assurance to the city may be required from the property owner prior to any variance being granted, which shall run with the land and shall set a fixed period of time in which the varied requirement must be approved by the property owner. I mean, could we use that to say that this is granted to this property owner with a bill of assurance and not transferred to somebody else unless they came back?
I'm still not,
And so I have a few other, unless you're still talking, Peyton, sorry.
No, go ahead, James.
But did any neighbors write? Are there any neighbors there in the chambers or
There is
other
not.
citizens?
Well,
We've got the
Or any
receipts.
letters on behalf?
The letters went out. Yeah, you've got copies. Right
No,
there.
they sent out the notices to the adjacent property owners, but he's asking, is there anybody here with you that would?
We didn't bring anybody.
Okay.
No. Now, the city was one of them. The city is one of our neighbors, and nobody objected from the city.
And is it your intention to not put any more gravel on?
It is. That's all I plan to do. And like I say, if you go by there now, this picture is very bright compared to what it's like today. Even Ron, when he went by, he said, I never even noticed it.
This is, well.
But I'm not going to put out any more, no. It's too much work.
I mean, what would happen if they put mulch down instead of gravel?
I'd lose traction.
well, for what it's worth, I'm still not sure this is an issue of being grandfathered in.
I'm struggled with,
The
yeah.
previous road by which they moved things back and forth there of wood or their trailer had gravel on it, but just simply does what gravel does in mud and sinks after a while.
Right.
And so I think all they did was, in my personal opinion, all they did was reinforce what was already in place for years.
Exactly.
Is it call for the vote time?
Any other questions or comments from the commission? It is call for the vote time. Peyton.
I'll call for the vote.
Okay. Call for vote by Mr. Parker.
Covert,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Mueller,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Parsley,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Austin,
Yes.
The variance passes 7-0.
You'll leave the gravel there.
Thank you so much. Thanks for your help. Thanks, Sean. You want to get your pictures?
Sorry we took so much time on that one, but I mean, these are some
Okay,
tricky
that's
ones
quite all
on
right.
here, so.
Thanks much. Have a good evening.
Next item, B 21-24, Larry and Martha Ashley, 5145 Arkansas Circle, variance for deviation of side setback from 25 feet to 20 feet, presented by Larry and Martha Ashley. We have Larry and Martha Ashley here. Okay. Hi there.
Hi, I'm Larry Ashley, and I have my wife Martha with me. We own a home at...
Can you pull your mask down so we can hear you a little better? Sorry.
Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry. I don't hear too well with all these hearing aids either.
Yeah, pull that mic down just a little bit.
Okay.
There you go.
Is that better?
That's better.
Okay, I'm Larry Ashley, my wife Martha's here with me. We own a home at 5145 Arkansas Circle. We're wanting to put a 17-foot extension on the west side of it. It will need to be able to fit it in there with the current 25-foot setback. We need a 5-foot variance to be able to do that. It is the biggest part of my yard. It sits on a corner in the front of the house. It's closer to the road. There's over 50 foot from the curb back to the house on the west side where we're planning the extension. And the extension is going to be for a one-car garage and storage to begin with. And eventually we want to make a closet out of that off our master bedroom. And I've sent out all the notifications to neighbors. Haven't talked with neighbors adjacent to me, haven't had any complaints from anybody. I've turned in a preliminary request to my homeowner association. They would like to act on it after we get through with whatever happens with the variance.
So if the city approves the variance request, then the property owners association, you feel will approve it as well?
I've been told they don't see a problem with it, but they didn't. Our association requires that you be within inside the legal setbacks, and so they wanted to hold off. So I've every indication I received from them that they would approve it.
No comments? Okay. Any questions or comments from the audience? To the commission?
Any questions from the
Be a call for the vote.
Call for the vote.
Call for the vote by Mr. Covert.
David,
Yes.
Mueller,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Parsley,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Austin,
Yes.
Covert.
Yes.
Passes 7-0.
Get approval from the POA, then you need to get a building permit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Next item on the agenda, B 21-26, Kelly Hayes, 1671 Greystone Place. Variance for deviation of rear setback from 20 feet to 15 feet, presented by Corey Granderson and Kelly Hayes.
Hey, good evening, Planning Commission. My name is Corey Granderson, and I am representing my father-in-law, Kelly Hayes, at 1671 Greystone Place. Currently, this property is zoned SF2, which, as you know, has a standard 20-foot rear lot setback. The backyard is very narrow as it was platted originally here, and Mr. Hayes is desiring to put a swimming pool in the backyard. It would be an in-ground pool, and in order to do that, we would need to encroach 5 feet into that 20-foot setback. And I just want to clarify that what we're requesting now is not for any above grade structure or building, but an in-ground pool. And we respectfully request your consideration for approval of this. We do not need any side setback modifications, just that one rear setback adjustment. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Staff comments?
Comments?
Any questions or comments from the audience? To the commission?
Call for the vote.
Call for the vote by Mr. Covert.
Mueller,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Parsley,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Austin,
Yes.
Covert,
Yes.
David.
Yes.
This passes 7-0. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Next item, B 21-27, William and Janelle Reesk, 1639 Greystone Place, variance for deviation of side setback from 8 feet to 5 feet, presented by William and Janelle Reesk. Hi there.
Hi.
If you can state your name for the record.
William and Janelle Risky.
Okay. And tell us a little bit what you're wanting for this side setback deviation.
Okay, we currently have 8 by 12 wooden storage building in the back of our lot. It's become dilapidated and we want to replace it. The building we want to put in is a little bigger at 16 by 20. Our backyard is basically triangular, and so the more setback we have, the further forward into the backyard we have to move the building. We're currently asking for a 6.5 foot setback between us and the fence between us and the property on Stonehaven, and a 5 foot side setback from the fence between us and the property at 1625 Greystone. Since that fence is diagonal, the setback would be 5 foot at the back of the building and would be approximately 15 foot at the front of the building.
So I'm going to comment on this. I think we have a little bit of discrepancy in the application for this item. The narrative that was provided mentions a deviation in the rear setback, but the application, all we had was the side setback from 8 to 5 feet. On the rear, there's actually a 15-foot utility easement there on the west side of this lot. So based on what you just mentioned, that would be an encroachment into that existing utility easement.
So where the current storage building is, that's encroaching on the easement already, right?
That's what it sounds like.
Okay.
This will become a permanent structure because of the size. Are you pouring a concrete?
Yeah, concrete slab, yes.
Okay. Ed, have you all looked at any of this yet?
Other than the fact that we noticed on the narrative that it was in the utility easement that has been
Okay,
vacated.
we have a utility easement situation. We can't grant a variance into a utility easement unless the utility easement has been vacated. So did you submit a site plan that shows exactly how it's going to fit into that location? 'Cause I don't have one in my packet. Because if you're getting into that utility easement, then we got to go through another process before we could grant you that variance.
I wasn't aware the utility easement was that wide. I thought the 6.5 foot setback would clear the easement.
Okay, did you look at Austin?
That would clear the easement on the north for the side setback. That would put it abutting the 5-foot easement that is on the north side of that lot. But if we're talking about the west, there's a 15-foot utility easement.
Yeah, on the west side, there's a 15-foot utility easement. You can't encroach on that unless the utility easement itself is vacated.
Okay, so in other words, we'd have to move the building another, 9 foot to the north? I mean, to the east?
Okay, that's not something I can do in my head. Let me tell you that up front.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm asking for 6.5, and it'll be 15, so it'll be another 9.5 foot. Okay, well, I guess we'll just have to rethink what we want to do then.
Okay, and then you need to come back with a revision if you decide that you need to encroach on a setback. If you got to have a setback, a storage unit of that size.
Okay.
Okay?
What's the current storage unit size again?
The current one is
Is it 8 by 12?
8 by 12, yeah. It's on the skid, so it's not permanently mounted.
Okay, and you'd want to go to 16 by 20.
Yeah.
8 by 12, I mean, you can go up to a portable can be 120 square feet. You could do a 10 by, that may not be big enough for what you want, but.
Yeah, that wouldn't be big enough to take care of what we need.
Okay, then you need
We'll
to.
have to go back and relook at it. We may just decide to make repairs to the current building and figure something else out for our other needs.
Okay, if you come back with it, we need a drawing that shows exactly how it's going to be with those utility easements that are marked, so we know that you're not getting into those.
Yeah, well, I have a drawing, but I didn't have the utility easement marked, so.
Okay.
Are we withdrawing this or tabling it?
Do you think you can have it done in a month?
Let's just come back with another application.
Okay.
Because I'm not sure if I have to go that far from the west side, if I even want to
Okay.
do
So we're withdrawing this
So
one.
you're withdrawing this other one. If you make a decision, then you need to come by the office and we'll work on getting your new application together.
All right.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Next section, waivers, W 21-04, Joshua Perry, 728 J Lane, waiver sidewalk requirement presented by Joshua Perry.
Yes, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Hi, yeah, kind of what sorry, I'm trying to get this laptop to cooperate here. What I'm looking at doing, our road it's a dead-end road, with 4 residents on it. And we live at 692 J Lane. We actually purchased a property, just, north of us at 728 J Lane. We're under construction of a new house, and we're just trying to get a waiver for, the sidewalk, trying to not have to build the sidewalk whenever there's no other sidewalk on the street and not really a reason to justify a sidewalk.
Staff comments?
Katie, are you still online?
Yes, I'm here.
Is that a public street or is that a private street? Do you know?
I've actually had this question before, and I believe it is a public street. It has a green street sign and everything.
Okay.
Whenever we had a water leak, there was some debate back and forth with the city department and stuff. And I think they finally determined that it is a public street, although it is not a through street. It does dead end there at the end. And like I said, we own the property next to us. On the property, there is a duplex at the end of the property, at the end of the dead end. Half of it is a residence, the other half is there used to be a business. He's actually retired now. And then there's our house, and then the vacant lot where we're building, and then a former business as well. He's also since retired. His son's using it for storage, and then another residence. But other than that, we're the only ones on there. We butt up next to this neighborhood on Andy Street. And it's all commercial back behind us, so we're pretty isolated back there. I just didn't see, a reason why we should be required to build 260 foot of sidewalk.
I don't normally recommend waivers of sidewalks, because if we don't start with somewhere, we'll never get them built, so you know my position.
Are they also required to build curb and gutter? I don't think this street has curb and gutter at this point.
With a single-family home, they're not required to do curb and gutter.
Okay,
Only
okay,
a
that's what I
sidewalk.
thought.
Yeah.
Any questions or comments from the audience?
I had another question concerning driveways as well. It's my understanding hard surface, that includes concrete and asphalt, correct?
Katie?
Yes.
Okay. So there is an existing asphalt driveway from the house that used to be at 728, and it would be good to go ahead and use that existing driveway instead of having to tear it out and start over.
Yes, you can use that. If you want to expand it, you will have to do it in asphalt. It just has to match the same material.
Or we have the option, I guess, to tear it out and go concrete, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So on this sidewalk issue, and it has to run full length of the property? Or
Correct.
is it just in front of the house, full length property?
Full length of the property, yes.
Okay.
Let's do the commission.
This would be a recommendation to council. Council actually makes a decision on this, but planning commission would make a recommendation.
Okay.
Recommendation to approve the waiver, to move forward to council.
Recommendation by Mr. Covert. I have a second.
Second.
Second by Miller.
Parsley,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Austin,
Yes.
Covert,
Yes.
David, I'll come back. Mueller,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
David,
I don't know if he's still online or not, so, okay.
Let's see.
So this,
I don't see him on the participant list. We might have lost him.
this waiver passes 6-0.
Staff will prepare the resolution, and the recommendation will be made to the city council on the 27th. They are the only ones that can actually grant the waiver.
Okay, thank you.
Last item on the agenda, L20-14, one-year extension request of LSD Go Punch List, lots 1 and 2, Hammond Oak Business Center, approved May 5th, 2020, Planning Commission meeting, presented by ESI.
Good evening, Commission. My name is Dylan Bentley with Engineering Services. We're seeking to extend this LSD 1 year from the May 5th Planning Commission of last year. I'm here to answer any questions if you have any.
Staff comments? No comments on it? So, okay. Any questions or comments?
Why are we extending it a year?
Due to the global pandemic, our client was concerned with developing and starting a new business. So this would extend that LSD so we wouldn't have to go back through Planning Commission.
Okay.
We have granted extensions on approved large scales several times. This would be a motion to grant the 1-year extension.
Commission? Do I have a motion?
Motion to grant a 1-year extension, push forward to the commission, to city council.
Motion by Mr. Covert, second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Mueller.
Tyler,
Yes.
Austin,
Yes.
Covert,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
okay, Mueller,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Parsley.
This extension passes 7-0. Thank you. Planning Director report?
Actions taken by the council in March. The council approved the ordinance to correct the Scrivener's error in the rezoning at 3300 Clyde Lane. It was a mistake in the legal description. They approved the amendment to the zoning ordinance to allow for the special electric enhancement districts, or the C districts. They approved the amendment for the form-based code to add that one track and to change the designation to a campus type. And they approved the rezoning of 3444 Wagon Road from A1 to C5 and the 11 acres on Old Missouri Road from I-1 to I-2. The rezoning request for the PUD at 7655 West Gibbs Road was tabled. It'll come up at the next Planning Commission. They approved the waiver of the sidewalk requirements for 913 South Spring Creek Road, which was a single-family dwelling. They authorized the contract with DSA and increased the funding to DSA by $50,000, making that a total of $100,000. They authorized the release of a conservation easement at Rabbit Foot Lodge, and they're working with the Northwest Arkansas Land Trust for the area to continue compliance with state statute and the terms of the purchase of the property through an easement through Northwest Arkansas Land Trust. That's a hearing date on a petition to abandon a portion of utility easement in a lot in Pinewood subdivision. They approved a settlement of easement acquisition for the 40th Street project, which is Falcon Road to Spring Creek Bridge, and they appointed a new member to the Public Facilities Board. Work sessions, we talked about having 2 work sessions in April to kind of get through this meeting with all of the different organizations. So the next one would be on April the 13th, which is also a city council meeting night. So we will tentatively right now be meeting in the multipurpose room. The speakers at that work session is Karen Davis, who is the Community Development Director for the City of Lowell. We thought it would be a good idea for us to talk about the different, the relationships we have and the boundaries there. Philip Taldo with the Arkansas Highway Commission and Heath Ward with Springdale Water Utilities would be the presenters at that meeting. The second work session, which is set for the 20th, which again would be at 5:30, would include Mervyn Jabara. I never can get his last name right, but he's with the Center for Business and Economic Research, talk about trends and development that's going on in the region, and Dr. Cleveland with the Springdale School District to see where the school district is going. So that, I think, pretty well catches up with the topics that we originally talked about, getting that information forward. Shannon, we appreciate your presentation the other night, and Ms. keeps us on schedule to finish this review in the timeframe we were talking about previously. And that's all I have.
All right, anything else? Yes?
Chairman, real quickly, I'd like to appreciate Councilmember Mark Fugers for being with us tonight, as well as former Councilwoman Kathy Jaycox. Good to see you, ma'am.
Thank you so much for being here. It makes a difference when you guys are in attendance on it. And we encourage you guys to come to these work sessions. The last one was very intriguing to understand what the growth is going to be in this area. And, get used to these long meetings as far as planning commissions, because I don't think it's going to slow down on there. I think we could see some longer meetings as well. But appreciate everyone's patience and attention. Meeting adjourned.